Thank you. I will take this opportunity to rename myself. Thank you for speaking about my name so kindly. Um, I am so grateful to see all of you here with me, with us. Thank you for being here. I invite anyone who wishes to turn on their camera. I would love to see people's faces, and very happy for people to leave their cameras off as well. Um, I'm very grateful to be here. I am in Virginia Beach, Virginia, in the United States, the ancestral homeland of several indigenous peoples, including the Chesapeake and the Powhatan, a confederacy. And I grew up here, and there is a swamp nearby, um, a swamp and lake called Sumpy Lake, and there is a great blue heron rookery at Stumpy Lake where the herons breed and mate in the spring. And I, it's like a 10-minute walk um, from the house I grew up in. And I grew up here and I left to go to university at 18 in New York City. And then I lived in New York City for 13 years. And then I just moved back here in March of this year. So I moved back during the breeding season, and I went over to Stumpy Lake several times, and I was astonished one day to find um, I was on my bicycle and I was biking past this section of the swamp, and I saw maybe one or two herons standing very still as they often do. And I had to pull over and um, I stood and watched them, and then as it was kind of dark inside of the swamp. It was coming into evening, and it was it was darker inside, and so I had to let my eyes adjust. And as I let my eyes adjust, I saw a third and a fourth, and then I looked up in the trees, and there were five, six, seven, and I realized that there was a whole um, a, a whole group of them. And I actually looked this up the other day. I was looking up what I love learning all the the names for different groups of animals, like a murder of crows and things like that. And I looked up for herons, and I think there were a few. There was one that was a scattering of herons, which I love. And then there was another one that was like a ooh, it'll come to me. But there was but what I realized that there was a scattering of herons there. And 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 so and so thank you, Chris. A siege. That's it. Yes. Uh, this is my friend Chris Martin. Thank you, Chris. That's it. A siege. Yeah, I thought it was another S word. Um, so but I only recently learned that heron rookery is there. You know, I grew up here my whole life. I'm 32, and I only learned that this year. Um, and they've just been there, you know, long before I was born. Uh, I want to. So I will be with you all until 7 o'clock Eastern time, and I'd like to keep my remarks relatively brief, because I would like to have a conversation with you all and have ample time for that. So I'm gonna try to be brief, and my friend Adjua is here, and I sometimes tell Adjua that I'm gonna try to be brief, and then I fail to be. So I will try, and I think fail. But I will start with a poem by Emen Bukela, um, who is also here. And hello, Amen. I I am feel very grateful to be able to read this poem that you wrote and that I read this morning, while I was having brunch on my way down from New York. I drove down down back to Virginia from New York this morning, and I was having my salad and reading this poem and just writing all over it. So I was going to read this. It's so beautiful. It's called Traveling Mudded Streams. Trust plots, mind, treasures grandly mudded, motioning tacit vamped streams that drag plucked potential. Truth tracks intention to free modes trapped, thinning, unfolding, pleated thoughts, rehearsing dropped roles, staging omitted scenes. Tragedies theming dramatic endings. Tramps traveling trials, looking to home, troubled hope, tucked in their sorrow, trusting the vacant roads to recreate trust, healing the hollow. Trouts trying to view time, drastic ending, torn, daring, to travel mudded streams, to grab a novel, seemingly careless path, voiding the troubled insides losing. Tried doubts, dreaming piles of infinite, illegitimate truths. I'm going to reread one of the, I'm going to reread 3 of the lines. Tramps traveling trials, looking to home troubled hope, tucked in their sorrow, trusting the vacant roads to recreate trust, healing the hollow. And I think what I'd like to just talk about a bit is, I want to try to think about stuttering in terms of what man has offered us with these words and phrases: home, vacant roads, healing, hollow. I want to try to think about stuttering in terms of a vacant road to recreate trust, healing the hollow. I I so often feel, like when I went and saw when I had that moment with the herons at the rookery in the swamp in the dark. I felt this sensation that I so often feel, which is that I feel that there is this pane of glass that's very, very thin, maybe as thin as a breath, between me and the the world, and really between me and nature. That even though I know that I am, as you said, John, an animal, that I am part of nature, I feel often so separate from it, and it is so painful. And I remember when I went and when I was seeing the herons, I was like, what I really want to do is just go and be with them there. And I considered walking into the swamp, but it was immediately clear that it was very that I couldn't walk. There was so much water and mud, and I just stood on the bank on the grass. But I wanted so bad to just like go and be a heron, really, and go and be with them. And I feel that like just so often, with the grasses and the clouds, and um, that I feel that there is a separation that I think is an illusion, but it feels very real. Um, and there's a Canadian poet named Tim Lilburn who has this book that is very important to me. It's called Living in the World as If It Were Home. And he's from Saskatchewan, and a lot of the book is he's writing about the experience. He's writing about the landscape of Saskatchewan, where I've never been. But he writes so vividly of the prairies and the grasses and the hills, and that title, "Living in the World as If It Were Home." I'm trying to think about that again in relation with what Amen says about trusting the vacant roads, because I do have the feeling more and more that stuttering for me is it and so often can be a way to come back home to the world, and 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 it's a feeling that I've had for a long time, and I find it very hard to articulate. So I will just spend some time with you all thinking about how to perhaps articulate it. But there's this moment that I have often when I am stuttering, um, particularly in longer, more extended blocks, where I feel, it's like where it feels like it feels like, because my grasp on language in those moments, um my grasp on language loosens, and I'm sitting in this silence, something that it appears to be silent, but I don't think it actually is silent. But in those moments, I can feel sometimes that I have, it's like an escape route back into nature, as if as if um fluent language is a house, and that the stutter is a door that leads me into the backyard, which is where I want to be anyway. Um, and it feels like yeah, like a door or a window, or um, again, as a man says, a vacant road, a road that leads me home. Um, and I think part of it has to do with naming, and names, especially. Like you mentioned, John, my relationship with my name. In the book, there in that book, Living in the World as If It Were Home, Tim Lilburn, he says something like, the world is its names and the cancellation of its names. And he's talking about this, and he uses the image of a deer. He talks about himself sitting and watching a deer, and he says something, oh, it's so beautiful. He says something like the deer that he's watching stand out and away from the name deer. That, of course, then the word deer is just an English word that we apply to this being, that in another language, in Portuguese, you would call it servo, and in any other language, you would call it a different thing. So, of course, all the words, they attach onto the animal, but the animal is, of course, none of those words. And 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 and, and yet we rely so much on words and names. And so when I am especially stuttering on my name or anyone else's name, I can have this feeling that, like when I'm stuttering on my own name, that is one of the ways in which I feel most like an animal, because I feel that I lose my name, even for 5 seconds, or 10 seconds. So I go up to someone in there, and they, they extend their hand to introduce themselves, and they say their name, and then I send my hand, and then I'm just there, you know, and and sometimes I then, like, I remember this one time I used to work at a library, and there was there was this woman who also worked there, who I was meeting for the first time. It was towards the beginning of my time there, and she introduced herself, and I took her hand and shook it, and then I stuttered on my name, probably for about a full minute, and we just, like, held hands, and she just waited. She was so patient, so kind, and like in that moment, it was so precious to just be holding this person's hand in silence. These two animals, and she wasn't saying anything, and I was speaking, but there was no sound. And to me, that's like this door. Like, in that moment, to me, there's like a doorway that opened, that I then was able to, like, return home, in a way. Um, so I would like to read these three lines once more from Imen's poem. Tramps, traveling trials, looking to home, troubled hope. Even just that line. Tramps, traveling trials, looking to home, a troubled hope. And what I also hear here is the hope to the hope to but the troubled hope that we may, I mean, not only return to our home, but to stop destroying our home. And I'm thinking, very specifically of the recent of the climate conference that just occurred in Glasgow, and just the utter clarity of what, um, of the very specific ways in which we can lose our home. Um, So I'm thinking of that, and I'm also thinking of, like, for me, part of what perhaps stuttering might offer is, again, like that moment with the with my coworker, holding her hand in silence. There's something that I think, um, is like blooming there, that I think has to do, for me, has to do with me watching the herons. It has to do with the way Amanda's talking about home. It has to do with, um, listening, and the name, and taking away the name at the same time, and what lies in between those two things. Um, and Chris has shared in the chat, like dilating the possibility of what one might be, or be named, or become. And Crystal Palace has shared with 3 carat, pointing up to Chris's comment, garment of civilization slipping away. Yes, I hear this, the word dilate, um, also in the context of an experience I I think other stutterers have, is sometimes when stutterers stutter, their eyes widen, or their mouth widens. Um, that there is a sometimes a at least I feel sometimes that the word that is being stuttered on, it like needs so much space inside the body, and needs so much space to be uttered. Um, and I will read Pamela's comment here, and then I will, stop speaking, so that I can talk with you all. But Pamela has shared. Oh, and Lisa has shared. Stuttering devours our spoken names. And Pamela has shared, I've experienced meeting someone new who stutters at a conference, and shaking hands and having the handshake take as long as it needs. It is very intimate, even with someone you don't know yet. Yeah, yeah. Um, and the last thing I'll say is, there's a stutterer and researcher named Chris Constantino, who talks about the moment when someone holds a door open for a stutterer, and the stutterer is stuttering on the thank you, but the person is walking away. And this has happened to me many times, and I will sometimes I have to like yell my thank you, because it's really important for me to thank somebody when they hold the door open for me, and sometimes I have to yell it. But I think about that moment too, like the door that is held open, and then the time it takes for the thank you to arrive, but making sure that the thank you reaches. Oh, I will stop there. And then thank you so much for your words. And yes, if anybody, I would love to, yeah, speak with you all. And yes, and thank you for listening. And yeah, feel free to, if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat, or welcome to speak them aloud as well. And thank you, John. Thank you to the Canadian Stuttering Association for having me. I'm very honored and happy.
Oh, well, we're grateful that you're here. Thanks so much for that. And as Jerome said, if you would like to reflect on and ask a question, or share a comment or something that resonates, or a question, that's what we're here for. And this can certainly be an open dialogue here too. Got a few more people who are going to join us too, so I might just mention that again.
Well, I really enjoyed your talk, Jerome. It was amazing, and I just love your deep and philosophical take on stuttering, because to me it's always been this very existential, deeply kind of a deeply disruptive thing to our psyches, to just the way we interact with the world. And it's always, though, so hard to express that, because to everybody else who we interact with, it's just this kind of weird thing that they pretend isn't happening. Or I mean, even most people are polite enough, but sometimes people think I'm drunk or something, or I'm just a weirdo or something. So it's just this adds this other layer to your interactions with the world. It adds this other dimension to your whole interaction with the world. And I really think that you touched on that. So it's always been hard for me to put it into words, but I think you do that. So thank you.
Mm. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much. Yes. Yes. I mean, you have just put it into words as well. And I feel that's what we are all doing here together, trying to put things into words together. I appreciate what you say. And I think, yeah, like somebody thinking you're drunk or weird is it's absolutely true. And, you know, specifically the the aspect of drunkenness, I think about the ways that, fluent speech is, ideologically allied with um, a control of one's body and control of one's mind, and thus control of and not thus, but from that, a control of like wielding control in society. Um, and that then leads, leads it leads to dangerous things. Um, so what I hear and what you're saying as well is that I think stuttering holds it holds within it an inherently radical uh, potential to, as you said, to use your word, is a disruptive to norms around control and power and mastery. So thank you for sharing. I'm going to read a few of the. Well, I'm going to answer this question from Anita, and then I also want to read some more of the comments in the chat aloud. But Anita asks, "Can you talk about what music means to you? Your music is just as poetic as the poem you read." Um, Thank you, Anita, for the question, and thank you for your kind words. Yes, music means, of course, so many things to me. In this moment, what comes to mind is that what I was saying about like me looking at the herons and just wanting to be a heron. I feel that music is one of the ways that uh, I try to like slake a little bit of that a desire, in music, I feel that I like can approach animal being in ways that are very valuable. Like there are ways in which when I'm playing music, I feel that I am flying or swimming or diving, or I get very small, I get very big, or I feel wild in certain ways. So I think that's one of the things that music means for me. And also one of the other things it means for me is that music helps me, um, as Crystal Palace said earlier, to the garment of civilization slipping away. It helps me do that too. It helps me practice being less civilized, um, which I think is extremely valuable, especially in the way that I often approach music, which is through improvisation and through improvisation where I where like the rule is to simply follow the sound. Um, Amen and Rachita share free thinking savors pauses to track tucked treasures. Yes, thank you. Amen. Rachita. I'm thinking of this word treasure especially. Um, it feels to me like um, it feels to me like something that I'm finding in other people's comments of what they're sharing is a perhaps an idea of what treasures are being overlooked when, like what you were saying, Lisa, when the stutter is interpreted as something that is simply weird, and it is not, when it is not taken as seriously as it should be, or when it is not attended to as imaginatively as it could be. Feels to me that there are, as a man and Rachita share here, are tucked treasures that are being overlooked, and ignored. And John Moore, yes, I would love to hear from you.
So, Jerome, I am humbled by your clarity and
Thank you, John.
humbled by your ability to synthesize so many things and just bring about your poetry. It is phenomenal. So, on that end, I've been spending some time over the past couple of days listening to the clearing. And the thing that I find fascinating is the pauses that you use in your speech. And those pauses become actually music. And I think there was some quote, Miles Davis somewhere at some point in time said something about that that not playing a note is actually playing a note.
Yeah.
That to me is something that I felt in the anticipatory quality of the pauses. And even hearing you speak, just that pause makes me linger longer, knowing poeticness is coming. And it's very cool. So that said, help us to understand how you feel stuttering has shaped you to becoming a better performer, a better musician.
Mm. Oh, John, thank you so much. That's so kind of you. Really appreciate your listening to the album, what you share about it. Um, yeah, I mean, I really appreciate this question. Um, you know, I mean, uh, Crystal Palace has just shared here this phrase, imaginative tending, and that speaks exactly to what I was to what how I wanted to start to answer your question, because lately I had this image of, like when you um like I'm living with my mom and my dad right now, and in the summertime my dad has these hostas, and they were in flower, and they're so beautiful, and the flowers are this like lavender color, and the bees just came, and they were loving, and they were just like thronging at the flowers, and my dad didn't want the bees there, so he cut the flowers, um, and then the bees went away, and for me that image helps me think about um, stuttering, because I was really sad when the flowers were cut, and to me, um, part of my practice of letting those pauses exist is a practice of not cutting the flowers. To me, like the pauses um, are a flower that comes, and that there are patterns that are ingrained in many of us of, efficiency and speed in speech, that falls under often the name of fluency or ableism, to where, which often results in people who stutter or otherwise speak just fluently, including people who with Tourette's or certain autistic individuals, where the way that they speak is not allowed for, and that their flowers then get cut, because they don't fit into the norms. And so, like, to answer your question about how, like, studying has helped me become a better performer, musician, I mean, what you said about Miles Davis is absolutely right. Like, it has taken me some time to learn, but it's like that. I think of, well, I'll get there in a second. It has taken me some time to learn that, what like, I already have everything that I need. Like, for me, so much of my life growing up, I was like, I have to get rid of the stutter, so that I can do what I want. Like I wanted to be an actor when I was really little, and I said, like, well, I can't because I'm a stutter. So I need to go and do something else. I think that's part of the reason why I started playing the saxophone, because I didn't feel that I could be an actor. Um, Whereas now I'm like, well, the stutter is actually, like, that's actually where, um like that, not only is there nothing wrong with it, like, that is my song. And it feels to me that, like, Miles Davis has his song, and Aretha Franklin has her songs, and that, like, part of what they're, a musician like Aretha Franklin or Miles Davis, part of, like, what makes them so glorious is that it feels like they are communicating their song as fully as they can, and that's what I try to do. So it feels like the stutter is like my song, and is my bush, and that I just need to let it just blossom as much as it can, and to just and to be and to be proud of it. And again, as as Crystal Palace says, to imaginatively tend to it, because what I notice sometimes is that, like, you know you sometimes in, like, a city, you see there's, like, the house that has the wonderful garden, and then, like, it inspires the neighbors to be like, oh, maybe I should have some plants outside, because it's so nice to have a garden, and then all of a sudden the whole block is full of gardens. I also think of Basquiat, when Basquiat crosses out words in his paintings, and what he says about that is like that he realized that when you cross out a word in a painting, it makes the viewer, it makes the viewer of the painting more interested in looking at that word. That's how I feel about the silences and what you're saying about the Miles Davis. It's like the stutter. I think it makes the language. It adds to the language. I don't think it ever subtracts from language. It only just makes it more. And to me, like what I was thinking about today, especially, I was like, and I've been thinking about it so much lately, is like, to me, stuttering, like one of the things that I think is so valuable about it is that it preserves and it like helps us. It can invite us to reflect on the emergence of language, because language, of course, the way I see it is that like we were saying earlier with the deer, like there's a distance between the word deer and the animal deer, and sometimes I can forget that they're not the same thing. And to me, stuttering, it invites me to reflect that like language and the world are not the same thing, and that dwelling in that gap to me is interesting. Thank you, John. Yeah. uh, I will just read I'll read some of these comments, and of course if anybody wants to ask anything else, please do. I'm going up to where the last thing I read. Okay, so so Chris earlier said at 6:30 said grateful to Amen for writing just yesterday of quote vastening thresholds, a close quote. Sudeepa writes, forgive me if I have mispronounced your name. My first CSA conference was amazing. For once, I went to a party at which everyone spoke like me and took time to introduce themselves too. Thank you. I'll come back to the other ones, but there's a question here. Vic asks, you seem to have a very spiritual and compassionate view on stuttering. Can you talk about how you got there? Were there certain mentors, books, experiences, etc., that got you there? Thank you, Vic, for asking. Yes, certainly. Certainly one is the Canadian disability studies scholar Joshua St. Pierre, whose writings I think I started reading in 2019 and truly changed my life, and helped me come to much more compassion towards myself and my stuttering. I owe him so much. Daniel Martin is another Canadian scholar who stutters, and his writing also greatly helped me. But yeah, there's so much. I mean, my speech therapist. I had two back in 2013, I think. Dr. Bajoyan and the other one, her name has escaped me in this moment, but certainly them. Yeah, and I mean honestly, and just like watching nature. I mean, I just like observing those herons. To me, teaches me about stuttering and how and how to view it more spiritually and compassionately, and just like observing nature. I feel like that's where so much of my so much of my view comes from. And thank you, Vic. Trying to think of any other books, experiences. Well, I mean, yeah, and I think another one I would say is just my grandfather, who died last year. He was 100 when he died, and he was a minister, and he had a church in Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up from a baby going to that church when my family would visit New York, and he was, very much in like the Pentecostal and Baptist tradition, extremely musical, um, preaching, the peaks and valleys of his speech, and he, as far as I know, didn't stutter necessarily, but his speech was, he used pause and repetition and volume and so much. His voice was such an expressive instrument, and I think those early experiences in that church, I think, have a great impact on how I approach my own speech. Thank you, Vic. I'll read some more here. Chris at 631 said, thank you, Jerome and everyone here. Crystal Palace at 631 said, I'm hearing dilation in this door dynamic. Wow, wow. At 632, Ava said, I really like the idea of no labels. Nature and people need to be appreciated without the labels we use to separate. Yes. Thank you, Ava. And yes, the word separate, I think, is very important. Yeah, I think that's really important. Thank you. Let's see. Amen and Rachida at 633 said, healing mostly begins at the edge of mistakes. Thank you. Crystal Palace said at 635, responding to Ava, lately I'm experiencing a future vision fantasy of a wordless world. Yes. Ava responded at 635, yes, how wonderful. Crystal. And the Taiwan Stuttering Association has asked, Jerome, can you please share with us briefly what good speech therapy you had in 2013 that helped you? What was your therapy like? This coming from people who had bad speech therapy from bad therapists who focused only on teaching me to read fluently in the clinical room and never worked on fears and avoidances. Thank you. Thank you very much for asking. Yes, I think I was very lucky in having very good speech therapists. I was in speech therapy for maybe 4 months or so. I think one of the most helpful things was a practice that they refer to as advertising, which is where you just tell someone that you stutter. And I found when they proposed that to me, they said, so you should go up to people just on the street, on the subway, in the park, and just walk up to someone and just say to them that you have a stutter. And when they told me that, I was like, that sounds terrifying. And I can't even imagine myself doing that. And they said it's also useful to do it on the phone. And I was like, oh, I could do it on the phone, I think a little easier, but still very scary. And I did it for a few months on the phone mainly. I never really got to doing it in person, though. Well, it took me longer to do it in person. Now I do it in person too. If I'm about to talk with someone, I sometimes do it. But over the phone, I did it a lot, and I found it very very helpful. And just what I realized was I had so much shame around just saying that I speak this way, and so it really helped me shed the shame and just having to do that over and over again. And I find the word very interesting, advertising. Yeah. Thank you for asking. And Douglas, I see you have your hand up. Hi.
Hey there, Jerome. You and I have something in common. My middle name is Jerome.
Oh,
Yeah. So my question is how would you uh, characterize your relationship currently with your stutter, and could you compare that with your relationship to your music?
thank you very much, Douglas, for your question. And I'm delighted that we share a name. It's not a very common name,
Yes,
as you
understand.
know. So I'm delighted by that. Thank you for sharing that. Um, yes, my current relationship with my stutter is extremely complex and overwhelmingly positive. I see it as a I see it. I mean, I see it as so many things. One of the things I see it as is something that I am tasked with stewarding in this life, like as if I were taking care of a plant, and that it is my responsibility to just care for it and let it be and let it, as I said, like let it bloom as it needs and let it go dormant as it needs, and truly just to like I feel that I am at its service, and that is a great gift. And I feel that it is an ancestral task too. That like because stuttering is because it is in my case and as often as hereditary, I inherited from my mother. Um, I feel that it has been passed down for a long time, and that it is something. It is an inheritance that I have the gift of stewarding and taking care of. Which is not to say that it is easy, but that it is. Um, that's how I see it. That's one of the ways. The many ways I see it. Um, and the music. Yeah, my music I see as. Yeah, I mean, also I think like something that I am. Hmm, yeah, it's similarly like something that I am am channeling like that there is like it feels to me that like the music is that I am um if I feel like I am again like I have like a responsibility to convey the music that I feel courses through me, and that is also a great gift. I mean, I feel that music is just I feel that music is so divine and important, and to be able to be a musician I find to be um just a really like lucky and amazing way to live. um yeah, like sometimes I have a moment where I'm like, wow, I like I would think of like I like think like, wow, like what did I do to deserve to be a musician, is how I feel so often. Thank you. Thank you, Douglas. I see that we are at 7:01. I don't want to don't want to hold anybody. So thank you all. Thank you all so much.
Jerome, I want to thank you so much for being here and sharing with us. It's a pleasure and a privilege, and yeah, just on behalf of the Canadian Stuttering Association, we're just thrilled that you joined us to be a keynote speaker for our online conference. This was wonderful. I think you're getting a lot of shout outs and thank yous in the chat. I am going to post your album here. I pre-ordered mine. I'm getting the vinyl.
Yes.
And I got a note and it's on its way.
Oh, great.
So I'm looking forward to that. I just posted the Bandcamp link. And also, if folks want to listen to Jerome some more this evening, you know, you can always go to his website. There's text, there's videos, there's podcast episodes where he's been featured, and there's some incredible content, videos, you name it, it's there. Thank you so much again. This was wonderful. And yeah, I'd love to stay in touch. I think we all would like to stay in touch. I think we could have done this all evening.
Oh, yes, certainly. I could have for sure. And yes, Dana, I am on Instagram. I'll put my Instagram in here. Thank you so much, John. Thank you to you all for being here with me. Thank you to the Canadian Stuttering Association. And yes, please do stay in touch. If anybody wants to contact me, you can email me through the website, or here's my email here in the chat. Thank you. I hope everyone has a wonderful evening or day, wherever everybody is. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jerome. This has been tremendous.
Oh,
really appreciated the spiritual connections. Wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay, take care, everyone.
Bye.